In this week's episode of the Red Delta Project podcast, we're talking about how long should it take you to accomplish your goals? Are they happening too fast, too slow, and what can you do to speed up the timeline so you achieve them a heck of a lot faster? Hello there, my name is Matt Schifferly. I'm an author, inventor, and founder of the Red Delta Project, which is your source for helping you achieve greater levels of fitness with simple, efficient, practical fitness tips for modern day living. So this topic that comes up every so often on my social medias, the RDP Instagram channel, YouTube, Facebook, even emails, people write me saying, how long should it take me to get a muscle up or lose 30 pounds? I understand where this question's coming from because at one hand, we don't want to be impatient, but at the same time, we want to feel like we're on track. Like, if I've been trying to get a muscle up for a year and I haven't done it, am I doing something wrong? Well, I guess the best way I can phrase this is whenever this question comes up, I think of my mother when we were little kids in the car and we'd be like, Mom, how long is this going to take us to get to the store? She'd always say, we're going to get there when we get there. Because she didn't know, in all honesty, like living in Cambridge, Vermont, like we could be stopped because cows are crossing the road. You don't know. We're going to get there when we get there. So I'm always tempted to answer these questions like you'll get your first muscle up when you get there, or you'll lose your 30 pounds when you get there. Who knows how long that's going to take? But there are certain influences that can have a bit of control over this timetable. Some of them you have some control over, some of them not so much, but let's talk about them and what you can do to expect either a longer or shorter time, what you can do to speed things up. So the first influence is history. And I'm not talking just like training history, like how long have you been doing push-ups and stuff. Your body in its current condition and your ability to progress and advance that condition is determined by your entire history here on Earth. Like what you were doing in the first few years of your life has a lot of influence over your ability to get that first pistol squat. I know it kind of sounds weird and stuff, but we often get so focused in our mind over what my weight is or what I can do physically is determined by this new workout program that I've been doing for the past 6 weeks or my diet that I've had for the past month. But your current condition is the end result of everything you've done throughout your entire life. Recognizing this brings a little more perspective into expectation. Like, okay, yeah, you've been doing squats for the past 6 months. Great. What were you doing long before that? Let's say you're 20 years old. Were you doing squats throughout your life? Now, if you grew up in an Asian culture, for example, when I went over to Japan, a lot of Asian cultures, they make squatting kind of like the normal everyday thing. People don't sit in chairs sometimes, they squat down. You walk by construction sites and there are construction workers who have got like cigarettes hanging from their lips and, you know, they're all dirty and mangled, but you know what? They've got a better squat than many athletes. So if you took one of those guys and like, today we're going to learn to do pistol squats, most of them would probably have a pistol squat by the end of the week. Versus individuals who were like, I've been sitting at a desk for the past 20 years and I've hardly ever had to get down on the floor for anything. It's going to be a long time before you can do maybe even a deep bodyweight squat with both legs, let alone one leg. So one's training history and life history has a lot to do with the timetable that you're looking at for your success. Of course, recognize there's not a lot you can do about your history. But remember the saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So 20 years from now, you're going to look at the history you could have started to build today. So even though you may not be able to do for the first few years of your life up to this point, you still can have a very big influence over your future years by having very beneficial habits. So it doesn't mean all is lost. Like, oh, I was a lazy slob and eating junk food all my life and everything. It still means it's worth taking action now. The second thing is your ability to have consistent habits. Nothing slows you down like start and stop habits. And program hopping, like I want to be able to get a muscle up. Well, how often do you practice your muscle up? Whether you're like, dude, I practice it 4 or 5 times a week for the next 6 months, you're going to get there a hell of a lot faster than if you're like, well, I do pull-ups and maybe some bar dips once in a while, and I play around with trying to get a muscle up whenever I feel like it. No, there's no way that's going to happen anytime soon. Have a plan that you work on consistently without fail. This is why I'm always saying consistency is so important. I mention it as my 5 Delta principles in the first book, Fitness Independence, that guarantee results. Because without consistent habitual application of what you're trying to do, you're never going to get there. What's that mathematical principle? I forget what it's called, but the idea of like you have 2 points, and if you constantly stop halfway between the 2 points, like you go halfway between A to B, and halfway between that, and halfway between that, and halfway between that, you're always consistently moving forward, but you never actually get to point B because you're always stopping. So when you are trying to get from point A to point B, don't stop. Keep your habits. You can change them. You can be like, well, my workouts used to take an hour, but I had to cut them back to 20 minutes or whatever. Doesn't matter. Just stay on it. Don't do the whole start-stop kind of thing and program hop and jump all around. Luck is certainly another influence. Some people are going to make better progress just because of the luck of the draw. Hell, there was a story the other day I was reading about a world-class powerlifter. He was talking about his first ever workout. He squatted 315. First workout. There are people out there who've been squatting for 10 years who can't even squat 315. And he recognized, like, look, I'm built like a powerlifter. Like, my whole family's like this. I'm genetically built to be good at this sport. So I hit the ground running with more ability than most people have after years of training. But while we may recognize that, okay, I can't be built differently or anything, but the lesson is play to your strengths. If you're trying to lose weight, for example, and running isn't your thing, you're like, I just can't run. I hate running. I don't feel good at running. I'm slow. I'm sluggish. Don't run. If you have a strength of, say, kettlebells, you're like, oh, I love kettlebells. I could swing them for hours. Play to your strengths. We're all lucky in some way. We all have our strengths. We all have our abilities. Play to those as much as you can to get the results that you want. But at the same time, recognize that some of us just not going to be built to accomplish various things very quickly, if maybe even at all. There was an article on T-Nation the other day I was reading about things called androgen receptors. Androgen receptors being one of these things that basically determines how much muscle you can build. And the point of the article was, well, these tips may help you increase your androgen receptors a little bit, like black coffee in the morning and things. But at the end of the day, the author was like, look, if you're struggling to build much muscle, if you don't have very good androgen receptors, you need different parents. In other words, try to change your genetics. Like a lot of this ability to become a world-class bodybuilder comes down to, do you have the luck of the right genetics? So if you're this skinny little dude who just can't seem to build much muscle, it may not be in your wheelhouse. And by all means, try to be stronger, try to build some muscle tone, but don't go after things that just don't seem to be happening for you. Play to your strengths is all I'm saying. And then the last thing that you can do to greatly increase things is your skills in education. The better you are at doing something, the faster you can make progress with it. But if you're not very proficient or good at doing something, it's going to take you a lot more time and a lot more work to produce a fraction of the result. And this is why having a coach or some sort of a mentor who can teach you how to do things better, so that way you can be more productive with your habits, so you can accomplish more in a week than some people may accomplish in a month. So there are the 4 influences: history, skills and education, luck of the draw, and are you consistent? But there's also 2 mindsets that I want to address today, because sometimes it's our mindset and our perception of our timetable that can throw us off. One side of the coin is the idea that we're not patient enough, that we think results should be happening a lot faster, and that can be very frustrating and in some cases even goad people into quitting, saying like, oh, it's not fast enough, I must be doing something wrong. And they start program hopping and they're jumping all over the place. That whole consistency thing gets all thrown out of whack and everything. And it even slows down their progress even more. I had a client one time come to me and said, Matt, I've been losing weight consistently for 6 months. Right off the bat, right there, I'm like, holy smokes, that's amazing. Like the fact that he was losing weight from one week to the next for 6 straight months is absolutely unheard of. Congratulated him, like, that's great. But he's like, no, it sucks. Like, I'm only losing like a pound a week and stuff. And I'm like, dude, that's great too. Like a whole pound. And I'm gushing like this. But he was coming at me with the idea of like, shouldn't I have lost like 50 pounds in 6 months by now? Shouldn't I have lost a ton of more weight? But I'm coming at it from the perspective of a trainer and what I usually see from people. And this guy was already in the top 1% just by the fact that he was losing weight consistently, that he was losing that much, and that he had kept it off. That alone put him in the top 1%. But we've got so much hype and unrealistic expectations by marketers trying to sell us crap that we don't need, that our expectations have gotten so warped. It's like, shouldn't I lose like 100 pounds by this time next Tuesday? Shouldn't I be building muscle like crazy? So we need to be recognizing that patience is key. Sometimes what we think is going to take us a matter of weeks is probably going to take us more like a year. And sometimes what takes us a year is probably like a 5 to 10 year goal. The human body was not designed to go through massive, huge changes. I mean, think of like adolescence and puberty. Is one time in a period of someone's life when their body is changing at an insanely fast rate of speed. And even then, we're talking about changes that are measured from 1 year to the next, not 1 week to the next. So fitness is a much slower process than I think we've been led to believe by the fitness media and the marketing hype and stuff. However, on the other side of the coin, don't be too patient. I've run into many people working in commercial gyms where they're like, I just got to be patient, results will come in time. But they come in and they do their workout and they're following their diet week after week, year after year even, and nothing is changing. Nothing is really happening. And I ask them, how's it going? I was like, I'm just staying on it. It'll happen someday. I'm sure it's going to. No. Because the reality is, if you want to be in better shape by this time next year, you're going to have to make some measure of progress in the next 6 months. And in order for that to happen, you're going to have to make some measure of progress in the next 6 weeks. And for that to happen, you're going to have to make some sort of progress in the next 10 days. In order for that to happen, you're going to have some form of progress by the end of this day here. Because you can't make progress in the long term if you don't make progress in the short term. Staying still where you're at is staying still where you're at, both long and short term. So we still want to progress to some degree. We want to be pursuing this progressive ability. One of the things that holds a lot of folks back is they get stuck on the one thing that they're trying to progress. Like, I want to get bigger, I want to build muscle, or I want to lose weight. So they look at that scale and they're like, all I care about is that one number. A lot of times, though, progression is something that's nothing to do with that thing. Like, you could come to me and say, I want to be able to do a muscle up. And I'm like, okay, so we need to get you one proficient in pull-ups. And after a couple of weeks, you're like, all right, so I could do 5 pull-ups. Now I can still only do 5 pull-ups. I haven't made any progress. Like, yeah, but your range of motion's a little bit bigger. Or you're not struggling as much with that 5th rep. Or your body's not squirming around on that last rep. You're much tighter and much more controlled. That's progress. So you may be looking at it like, yeah, but I still haven't done a muscle up. I haven't progressed anything. I'm like, yeah, but those pull-ups that you're doing, they're getting a little bit better. And that's the progress, because better pull-ups are going to mean more pull-ups, which means more efficient pull-ups, which means you can become more explosive, which means you can get over that bar and you can get your first muscle up. So think in tiny little small steps. What can you progress? It doesn't even to a degree matter what you progress. As long as it's somehow related to your goal, it's going to help. So I guess if you're going to put this whole episode into a soundbite, I would say, be patient and hurry the hell up as far as progression goes. Pursue progression like a madman or woman, but be patient, because the results will come when they come. And for some people, it's going to be a week. For some people, it's going to be a couple of years. But the good news is, no matter how long it takes you, I promise it will be worth it. And you're going to be able to enjoy those gains, whether or not they come fast or slow. Hopefully that gave you some things to think about. Red Delta Project is the website. Go check it out. Don't forget, I got my books on Amazon, Smart Bodyweight Training, Fitness Independence. The brand new Calisthenics for Cycling is out. If you're a biker, bodyweight training to help you ride faster and stronger. That just came out last week. Don't forget, you can also get in touch with me. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over the interwebs out there. I'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, be fit and live free.